Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramona, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast. Steve, Ramona.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. I am so thrilled to have you join us today. We dedicate this podcast exploring the idea of with servant's heart with your work and your life. Imagine making an impact and difference in people's lives daily. I get to do that every day. I get to do it today with this wonderful guest I have. Imagine doing that every single day. It's like Christmas morning every morning. We also are bringing guests on to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you in their industry, in their field, or just from a servant's heart, maybe a story or something that happened to them. But we're always going to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you so you can also share that as well. Here's your homework today, audience. I want you to think about how you're going to serve yourself and serve others today and what impact you create today. The key word is today. We don't want to wait to do this. Let's start it today. Let's thank our incredible sponsor, Pantheon Alliance. Join the community of high-income entrepreneurs and business leaders who are creating a most massive, world-changing thought leader platform to impact and change the world, but also change and grow you as well. For more information, just reach out to me, and I'll get you all that information. With that being said, with impact and difference, my guest today is a future impact and difference maker. What is your future like? Different things like that. Do we think about the future? Yeah, we do goals and dreams, but she does something a little different that I think you're really going to love. Let's welcome to the show, Lynn. Welcome to the show, Lynn.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate being here.
You're so welcome. Ahead of your time. You talk about that with people. What the heck does that mean?
You know, people who are ahead of their time have been told they are ahead of their time. They've been thinking about things and promoting things that nobody's ever thought about before. And they have a desire to make a difference. They think of others before they put themselves first. And so that's the servant's heart part. And they have the courage to think outside conventional networks. So it's something that you would have never imagined possible. And it's because something matters to you and you just have to go for it.
Yeah. What's the benefits people receive when they think ahead of their time or are ahead of their time?
What's the
benefits to them? The benefits to them?
The benefits is that they're in their own lane. They're in their own lane. They're the only ones who people can come to solve a specific kind of problem, or they're the only ones people think about associated with getting a certain outcome, like getting more sales or getting more customers or getting more exposure. There's a lot of things that people want, and some people just want to make a difference.
When you find people, when they find they're ahead of their time, what do you do with them?
When I find they're ahead of their time, I ask them some questions about what it is they've noticed about their own passions and how they make them feel, and how those passions make them feel, and what they've noticed about people around them, and what they have in common, what the values are that they have that are in common with other people's values. And when they start to look at all those common things, new opportunities start to show up. And I've interviewed plenty of people that have those stories. So I want to be able to incorporate those stories into a book about people who are ahead of their time and how we can learn from them.
Yeah, that's powerful. Can you tell us a little story of one of these people you've worked with?
Sure. I can tell a story of Shawn. Her name is Shawn Campbell. She has a radio. She created her own radio station, and not-for-profit, called Chirp Radio. And you can find it on 107.1. And she had the vision for talk radio stopping, nothing personal. But she worked for commercial radio stations, and all they were doing were talking. And she wanted music. So she decided she had to get legislation put through for people to be able to create their own radio station. And then she was the first one in line. So Shawn Campbell is definitely ahead of her time. And she now has 260 volunteers who all act as DJs or back in the back office to help the radio station thrive. And she's been around since 2007.
Wow, long time. Did she realize she was ahead of her time, or did you have to bring that out of her?
She knew she was. She didn't think of herself as ahead of her time till people started telling her. She's just said, I can't handle not having music on the radio anymore. And since and she wanted to be something like NPR, but not quite as big a budget, and have people be kind of in charge of their own destinies when it came to playing music. So it's in Chicago, Illinois. It broadcasts 5 miles, and the DJs are volunteers. They're sometimes former professional DJs and former DJs from college. But they have a love of music, and they want to promote local music.
People ahead of their time sounds like passion's a big part of this.
Passion is a big part of it. The other person that really came to mind quickly, her name is Sonat. She has a company called Koval Distillery, and what she was passionate about was being closer to her family. Her mother lived in Chicago, and she was in Austria, and she wanted to be closer to her mother, who was aging. So what she was passionate about was family. But then the next thing she was married, and she and her husband were in the academic world. And because they wanted to put family first, they looked at what they already had that maybe hadn't been utilized very much. And it turns out that her husband's family owns distillery businesses in Austria.
Wow.
And so they took that knowledge and expertise and brought it to the United States and brought it to Chicago.
So finding these nuggets is powerful, because now you're serving others. Like in this case, Sonat's serving others with this great distillery, right?
She absolutely is. She's not only selling she's doing more than just serving others with the work she's doing. She's helped hundreds of other people develop distilleries. So she's helped the economy. She wants to make a difference in terms of people who are wanting to grow a liquor business and have no way of doing it and don't have the knowledge and expertise, and she's providing that.
I love to hear people ahead of their time or be in servants' hearts by giving their expertise out and helping others, because I think that's powerful in a servant's heart. Right.
So there are others, but those are two of the ones that stand out for me.
Very, very good. Expertise evolution gap. What is that? It's in your bio. In your bio, you had expertise evolution gap.
Yeah, expertise evolution gap is people who have expertise and they're utilizing a small part of it, but not all of it. And they haven't figured out how to use it in a relevant way today. So I mean, the example I have is that I've been asking questions, and I was around asking questions for years, for as long as I can remember, most of my life. And then I only used it, but the first thing I did was to become a classical opera singer. So it was, how do you sing was my question. Who helps you sing? But then after I learned how to do that, I wanted to move on to business. So then the questions changed. And then when I got into the world of learning, oh my goodness, all I did was ask questions, because helping people determine what they can learn and how they can learn it, and then how they can apply it, is really a pretty exciting thing for me. And that's something I've basically studied my whole career.
Yeah. How often does the people ahead of their time change what they're doing ahead of their time?
I haven't really, I don't think they necessarily change what they're doing. They're changing how they use what they have.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Andy Crestedina is another one. I'm just quoting from Chicago people, but there's other people from other parts of the country. Andy Crestedina is also from Chicago, and he was a recruiter. He was a technology recruiter. And he just said, this digital space, this digital media space, is just too interesting for me to pass up. And he was doing very well in the year 2000 with his recruiting business, and said, I want to take this path towards digital marketing because it's just so interesting to me. So he took the creativity he used for recruiting people and asking questions and finding the right fit and all those things, and used it to serve different clients who had marketing problems. So he wanted, his basic concern or need was to use his whole brain. That's what he really cared about most. And similarly, I just want to make sure that whatever I do, that people learn from it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Well, all this is tied to an upcoming book that you're writing. You want to talk about the book?
Sure. I'm not going to reveal the title yet because it's already changed twice. But ahead of their time is the beginning of the book, is the first part of the title. So I can say it's about people who are ahead of their time. And it turns out that there are a lot of similarities between people who are ahead of their time and pioneers. People who are not satisfied with the way things are going for themselves or for people around them or their environment, and they want to either make a change. Many pioneers back in history made the change by moving. But there's a way to use pioneering so that you're a first mover in terms of what you pursue. And so there's a lot of correlation between people who are ahead of their time and people who are pioneers. And so we're going to look at those similarities and differences and then highlight stories of people who kind of fit into that.
Are these stories in the same industry, or are you across a lot of industries? Oh,
they're across every industry. There's marketing, there's authors. There's one person who's in a very large recruiting firm, like I can't say the name of it, but he's in a very large recruiting firm, like executive search firm. There are people who are, somebody owns an accelerator for food and beverage. There's rabbis.
Oh, wow.
There
diverse.
Are people, what?
Very diverse.
Yes. And people who are in engineering and but decide to focus on leadership. So there's all kinds of people who started one way and then took what they learned and what they enjoy and served usually the same people in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is an interview style book. Talk about how you're getting all this information and content from these wonderful people.
It's really interesting. When I talk about people ahead of their time and that they are, and that they've been told that, but they're also surprised even when they say that. Like one of the people that I interviewed has 21 networks that he runs.
Wow.
And he's an author, and he just realized that networking in a certain way, what he called net worlding, creating small communities of people who care about each other, know, like, and trust each other, and can help each other would be very valuable. So anything he had a passion about, he created a network for.
Interesting. All that networking. Yeah, you introduced me to, I think, one of the ladies is part of it.
So it's really where people can have an exchange of not just information, but an exchange of skills so that you're both winning.
Yeah, that's a big thing. A win-win situation works 99.9% of the time. Nothing's guaranteed 100% except for taxes and death. So I won't go there, but it's so close. It's pretty cool. But
to answer your question, Steve, the people who are ahead of their time are people who I interview give me the name of another person. And I'm asking them questions about, what are your values, and what does it mean to have a servant's heart, and what does it mean? So I'm asking some of the same questions you are. Mm-hmm. How do you put other people first? How did you know what you wanted to do? What happened that made you know what you wanted to do? And it's been I just get really excited about whatever it is that excites them. Then I get excited.
Yeah.
And then they want to refer me to somebody else who's made a difference.
Snowball effect. It's really cool.
Yeah.
People listening think I'm ahead of my time. What's a piece of advice to figure out if they really are or not?
Have people told you that?
Many times.
So that's one of the cues. Have people told you that?
Yeah. Look at
like
that. You got me.
Steve, because
Yeah. Great question.
People told you that. And are people saying, I've never heard this before? I've never heard anybody talk like this before or ask these questions. And so I spoke in front of a group of women, and they said, I know. They didn't put themselves first. They said, I know somebody that's doing something completely different from everybody else in the same industry. I said, that's what I'm looking for.
So they should hear.
I don't want to call them trailblazers, but they're also known as first movers. There's a lot of names for them, but the big thing is they've looked at a whole industry. They create an ecosystem that's brand new.
Yeah.
And an ecosystem means, it's resources, training, learning, sharing, all these things in a group where everybody benefits. So community is a big piece to being ahead of your time, is wanting to have people around you and that are like-minded so that you can help each other. So I guess the last example that's coming to mind right now is somebody in the sustainability industry.
Mm-hmm.
And we think of sustainability as like big examples of, windmills and things like that, and carbon footprints and things like that. This woman broke it all down and said, how can you create a sustainable life for yourself? So she's focused on the consumer.
Very
and
cool.
She has a book coming out too.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of people would have books, wouldn't they?
Some do, some don't.
Just depends.
I'm trying to think. Many do, but not everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
People are too busy making a difference in the community. Like the person who's got the Natalie, who's got the hatchery, she made a conscious choice to build an incubator in a not so wealthy community. She built it on the west side of Chicago, where the people who want to be entrepreneurs don't normally have access, can't even get to an incubator to learn how to be an entrepreneur. And she put it right in the middle of Garfield Park.
Wow.
So it's just really, and this is just off the top of my head. I didn't study ahead of time to have this conversation. These are just what's coming to mind from all the interviews I've had.
How many people have you interviewed?
I've interviewed close to 20.
It's a large number, so you've got a lot of interviews.
Yeah, I won't use them more. I'd like to create a series of books. I'd like the first book to be a sampler of different examples of how you could be ahead of your time. And then we're going to get, maybe we're going to boil down and talk about certain people in a certain industry. There's one woman who wrote a, you're thinking, now that you mentioned it, there's another author in there who wrote a book about being awkward.
That's pretty popular. That's a popular feeling.
It's a popular feeling.
Which is not bad. It's just being aware is a big part of it. There's much more to it. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
We're coming to the end here. What does your work look like in the near 3 to 5 years?
Oh, that's a great question, Steve. My work in the next 3 to 5 years looks like speaking to larger groups about how they can together work with small communities to get ahead of their time in a group. Leonardo da Vinci did it on his own, but he had people around him. Martha Stewart did it on her own, but she actually, early in her career, early in her childhood, her father taught her everything about gardening. So she just built on that. And then, but the people who she served were housewives.
Yeah. Takes a community.
So, yeah. I mean, I really want to serve people who are authors and written books, or are leading companies and want to have more people ahead of their time serving the company.
That's a great plan.
Yeah. So that's what I really like to do. And anything I can do to promote authors makes me happy. So including people in these stories and in these books gives them a bigger audience than they could have ever imagined.
Yeah, no, that's true. And a good audience because of the servant's heart, what they're doing, what their impact they're making is going to draw people to them. Instead of just talking about myself, I do this, this, and this. It's I do this for this to make that impact. It's powerful. It's really powerful. Well, let's get to know Lynn a little bit more. I've got a great question for you. So I've got a reservation at a restaurant. It's a table of 4. You'll sit in one of the chairs. So you have 3 empty chairs. Who would you invite, whether they're dead or alive, and what food would you order?
My goodness. Who would I invite? Dead or alive? Gloria Steinem, Michelle Obama, and Oprah Winfrey, I think.
That's an impact. Whoa, what a table. Big table.
Me?
That's a big table.
Powerful table. And Jamie
Kearns,
Jamie Kearns, she just she sold the company It Cosmetics to L'Oreal, I think it was. I can't remember.
We'll bring a 4th chair. That's okay. You can have 4 guests. I'll let you cheat a little bit.
I wouldn't mind Mark Cuban at the table.
Yeah. I love Mark. That's another good one. What are they eating at the table?
What are we eating at the table? Something very easy to digest. So probably nothing messy, probably sushi, probably something simple.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So I could just grab the sushi and keep talking, keep listening, keep talking.
I think the more important thing is don't disrupt the flow of conversation.
Yeah, especially if you want to listen and hear what they're saying. That's so great. Well, this has been an incredible show. Ahead of Your Time is so powerful. When you're aware of that, like I have been, it's completely changed my life. So I know exactly what Lynn's talking about. I've followed her. She's helped me. She's interviewed me. And this is powerful stuff, because once you know that, wouldn't you like to be like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett? Now, like them or not, they were ahead of their time. And that's what
they were ahead of their time. I think now, just by the way, I think now Bill Gates is more ahead of his time
True.
Because of the Gates Foundation.
Yep. Great. He's changed. He actually went from software to even bigger ahead of your time. So that's a really cool point. Thanks for mentioning that. Now, people listening are going, how do I reach out to Lynn? I got questions for her. I want to learn more.
Yeah. So Lynn at straighttalkwriter.com is my email address. And you can just put, podcast in the subject line so that or ahead of your time and the subject line. So I know why you're calling. And I'm also on LinkedIn, pretty easy to find.
Beautiful. There's 2 places. Reach out, and the call to action at the end here is subscribe to the YouTube channel. But here's why: podcasts are gifts. So you're listening to this, and you, just like she said, she was talking to a group of women. Oh, I know somebody ahead of their time. You may know that.
I'm always interested.
She's interested. So take the podcast, share it with them. Go, hey Joe, I think you're ahead of your time. And they listen. They reach out to Lynn, and guess what? They might write a book. They might be in her book. They might just realize they're ahead of their time. That's a game changer. To me, the best gift in the world you can do. So give out those podcast links as gifts. And as always, me and Lynn want to thank you all so much for watching or listening to this podcast. You're very welcome. We look forward to seeing you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.